Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Catalyst Astrology Report. We are going to be looking at the weekend of the 27th, which is today, the 28th and 29th. Our third quarter square of the sun and moon is going to be on the 30th, which is Monday, and we are looking at the last lunar quarter, the fourth lunar quarter of this lunar cycle. We have a new moon on Labor Day, September 6th, 2021. So welcome back. Thank you for being here. If you're new to the channel, it's great to have you here. If you are a regular viewer, a subscriber, regardless of what platform you find yourself on, thank you for being here. I got a new microphone. It's not really new. I mean, it's new to me, but somebody was gracious enough to allow me to use it. So I'm curious to see how this actually works in terms of the sound quality. So we're gonna do the astrology. I know I said that I was gonna do an intuitive reading and transmission, and I did do one, but there's a lot to go over in all of this today, and so I'm not gonna take the time necessarily to go through the transmission. But needless to say, man, the energy really shifted between yesterday and today. And as we talked about yesterday, with Eris involved and the moon meeting Eris, squaring Pluto, so much chaos, and really testing our ability to exist in two places at once, right? Not to completely put our heads in the sand or to completely engage with fantasy and delusion, but at the same time, we don't want to completely immerse ourselves in what is going wrong, in our triggers, in our wounding, especially with that opposition with Venus and Chiron yesterday. So there, you could really feel it building, and by the end of last night, there were people who made comments to me last night that were literally like, I can't believe that this is my life. Because they're just experiencing so much personal chaos, and I'm willing to bet that many people right now are experiencing on some level this amount of chaos, either their personal life, within themselves, something outside of them that's close to them, or just being a witness and observer to what's happening on a much larger macro scale, right? On a national scale, a global scale, it is chaotic, and it is, it's just going to get much uglier. It really is. And we'll go into the new moon report next week. We'll go into the whole lunar cycle to really prepare ourselves for the beginning of October, which is when Saturn stations direct and Pluto stations direct. November, December is eclipse season. It is going to get ugly, folks, and I wish I could sugarcoat it in some way. And the best thing that we can do for ourselves right now is to not allow our conscious attention, our thoughts and awareness to be focused primarily on what seems like a loss of power, because when we do that, then that in fact is what's going to be happening. We have to stay focused on the abundance, what is working for us, seeing the challenges, the disruptions, the clashing that we may be experiencing as a result of the duality becoming very obvious to us right now. We do need to focus on what that creates for us, right? What that potential is in its creation of something new, right? That is the nature of this universe, is the polarity that attracts together and creates something very new. So it's important that we don't get caught up in what the power that we think that we're losing right now, which is going to become more difficult and more difficult and more difficult as these weeks start to unfold. And for this next new moon, which will be very much a Syrian new moon, right? The Syrian starseed marking for the new moon on the 6th is very, very strong, right? And there's something there that is, we can really set an intention here moving forward through the month of September, especially with this keeping ourselves open, keeping ourselves with the intention in mind, and really growing ourselves with the to receive something, to receive some measure of, support, and mostly some measure of identification with something that we're part of, right? Because it's not just us living in this vacuum, right? We are embarking on something, and have been, that is going to impact not just our lives but future generations, and we are the result of past generations that have gotten to this point. And when we see ourselves as part of a much larger process, a much larger picture in how and what and how we do it, there is the potential to be reminded, to be endowed with something that reminds us that we are, in fact, moving along the pathway of our mission, especially as starseeds, right? So that is going to be much more for that new moon report. And right now we are wrapping up this lunar cycle in this last lunar quarter, which in fact is, we are embarking on some major Draco starseed activations as well. And I will show you that in the chart as we go along. So, and this is not meant to be doom and gloom. This is not meant to be focused on what's not working necessarily. There's a lot of that. There's plenty of that, right? There's plenty of that rehashing over and over, kind of just like going over it constantly, what's not working, and just kind of running ourselves in circles. So there's plenty of that out there already. And in some ways that is almost intentional, it seems to me at least, in order to keep us locked in that hamster wheel of focusing on all of these things, instead of focusing on our ability to resonate and to vibrate at a higher frequency in order to attract in what it is we actually want. So this is a delicate time, and it's a delicate dance, right? This is not easy work at all, but it would be foolish to not acknowledge the ugliness that is going to surface. It's not like it's new. This is just surfacing to be seen. And many, many people on this planet still, regardless of, the rate of awakening, which is substantial right now, regardless of that, it still is going to have an impact on all of us. Even if you understand what is coming, even if you have some kind of inkling of what it is, even if you intuitively feel into what is surfacing, it doesn't necessarily, no amount of rationalization or reason or intellectualization will ever prepare you for the lived experience of these moments. And so it's important that we allow the heaviness and the emotional reaction and responses to what is surfacing to move through us. And I've talked about this a lot with the Hyades starseeds and the Hyades star origin kind of signature, right? To allow it to move through us, to be willing to express very authentically and very almost innocently what is moving through us as our consciousness starts to develop, right? And this is part of the lunar nodal axis. The North Node, or Rahu, is in conjunction now with the Hyades star cluster, and so our collective souls trajectory, right, our destiny on a soul level for evolution is very much in line with the Hyades starseed signature, and it is very much about expressing without pushing it away, without repressing it, without ignoring it. But you also don't want to attach to it either. You have to let it move through you, as opposed to getting caught up and attached in it. Or attached to it, right? Because once we become attached to one side or the other in this polarity, this is where we get stuck, and we don't allow ourselves to have some curiosity, to learn more, to gather more. So it's important that we let it move through us as we go through these times, and they are going to be difficult. The thing is that the more of the darkness that becomes obvious to us, the more that those who have, for whatever reason, they have not allowed themselves to move past this, to let go of their own shadow, whatever it is, right? Everybody's on their own journey. Everybody is on their own trajectory for their soul's evolution, and we can't pretend that we know what that is for everybody. But regardless of what it is, the more it becomes obvious to us, right? And the more that it becomes obvious to those who are still attached and clinging to that aspect of themselves. The thing about this microphone, by the way, is that it is much more sensitive. So with the incredible amount of loud traffic that goes down my country road, it's just, there's always the possibility here that it's going to pick up on that. So anyway, I apologize for that, but there's nothing I can do to control for that. So the more that this becomes obvious, and it will be this experience of clinging to it, and out of desperation not to be bathed in this light and purified in the fire, so to speak, there will be desperate attempts in order to keep all of us kind of in the dark, or keep us kind of entrenched in that duality and attached to it. And so it's important that you realize that as it moves up and out, as it moves through you, and it's okay to have responses. It's okay to have emotions about it. It's perfectly acceptable and normal and human to do that. And of course, our own feelings are a barometer for what it is that we need to look at deeper, which direction we want to go. And so we don't want to suppress ourselves, but we don't also we don't want to suppress ourselves. We don't want to repress our feelings, but we also don't want to get trapped into identifying exclusively with those feelings, because then we're just doing the work for them to keep ourselves locked in this situation, okay? But as we look at the astrology for this weekend and throughout the week, and I've already posted the study guide, so you can utilize that to remind yourself and to keep track of things. It's going to get uglier. It is going to get uglier. And so, especially with the moon in its waning phase now, it's getting darker and darker and darker. And so it becomes more difficult to be consciously aware of what otherwise is remaining subconsciously hidden from us. And so it's just, we're really being put to the test right now. And so it's just so important to realize all of this. So let's go into the charts and let's just start unpacking this, okay? It's important. I keep saying that, but it's true. And I'm so grateful for the ability to not only understand and read the astrology, but to be able to broadcast it and transmit it to you, because this is one of the modalities that we can use to really make sense of and really harness the potential of these energies as they move through us. So we're going to do this, and then we are going to, I'm going to minimize myself here, and I hope everyone's doing well, taking care of themselves. Like I said, it's just the chaos hit, and now we're being tested on whether or not we actually can exist in two places at once. So here's our chart for today. It is the 27th of August. I can't believe that we're almost out of August. So our sun is in Virgo, still in early Virgo, and our moon is in Aries. Well, technically now it's in Taurus, if you see that. Let me see here. I just want to make sure that, yes, there we go, that the stream is doing what it needs to do. So here we are with the moon in Taurus today. And remember, the moon is exalted in Taurus. She loves to be in Taurus. It's familiar territory to her. So there is this drive and this kind of draw for all of us internally and intuitively, and how we feel about things, to kind of just nestle into this comfort zone, right? To this space of comfort and security, right? To really embed ourselves in the medium of our growth, which is the physical world around us. And so there is a tendency with the moon to just get really comfortable, right? To kind of just get into that comfort zone and feel secure and supported. And we had the Empress yesterday in our intuitive part of the transmission, at the heart of things, to really trust the natural world, to trust what is. And there's a lot of other astrological symbols here and archetypal resonance that goes along with trusting and also being able to cooperate with the natural world, to trust that it will guide us through the process. And part of that is our own intuition and our own feelings. And so if they do rise, if they do get intense, I mean, I can feel it right now. The heaviness is palpable, right? And we do have solar weather coming, and it's certainly impacting us, and the Schumann resonance is not budging an inch, so we know that we're going to get like a full impact of whatever is coming of solar weather, even if it's not that entirely, it's not having as much of an impact as it probably could, but that doesn't mean over the weekend we're not going to experience some measure of solar weather. And light and the plasma from the sun, it is information, right? It does have an impact on us. And so that's something to keep in mind as we go through this weekend as well. So today, here is our moon in Taurus. And let's just kind of go through it, right? Let's go in the Wayback Machine here to look at these transits. Now, the first thing that I want to show you, actually, that's not actually on this chart, and I one day I will upgrade to Solar Fire or Astro Gold. I can't remember which one is the one for Windows. But in the meantime, I will use what is available to me that is free, because that is a very expensive program. And until my business is able to support the investment into these types of programs and all of the things that would upgrade, the quality of this business, I will use what's available to me. And I actually have a really great story to showcase that I'm going to post on social media. Oh, this is a total aside, but for some reason, BitChute is really struggling to process yesterday's video. So if that's your usual or that's your preferred platform, I totally understand. I've tried to upload it and process it 3 different times since yesterday, and it still is not processing. So Odysee is another option now that I am posting and uploading onto. So if you don't want to use YouTube for whatever reason, and BitChute is not processing for whatever reason, you can go to Odysee, and that's an alternative tech option as well to check out these broadcasts. So, and soon I will very soon be broadcasting on and streaming on Twitch, and I'm specifically going to be offering more of the horoscope type of broadcasts on Twitch exclusively. So that'll be cool. But in the meantime, let's go into this. So Neptune and Pallas Athena came into a conjunction early this morning. As you see here, Neptune is in Pisces. It is retrograde. Whenever you see it on this one in red, it means that it's retrograde. So Neptune is retrograde and Pallas Athena is retrograde. And so they met early this morning, late last night. And this degree here, as it has been for weeks with Neptune, is about the substantiation of an ideal or an unconscious desire through our vital energies, giving of ourselves entirely to this collective cosmic type of ideal or desire. So Pallas Athena, she is the goddess of wisdom and strategy, and she is, meeting Neptune. And so we get some measure here of, Neptune dissolves everything it touches, right? And so it's really hard to have boundaries between yourself and anything else, especially in a collective sense. When we're talking about Pisces, it really is the ocean of consciousness of everything. So it's really difficult to know what it is that you're actually substantiating when you are not comfortable or adept in this space, because there are no boundaries. And so this is, Pisces is the realm where mystics swim and psychotics drown, right? And so and Neptune's been in Pisces for years now. And so it's not like this is new territory. It's just that the further along it gets into that last decan of Pisces, the more that we are starting to substantiate back into some sort of new seed point, everything that is part of the collective unconscious. So Pallas Athena meets Neptune, right? She is the goddess of wisdom and strategy in war, right? She is much more pragmatic. It's less even though she is a goddess, she is using her pragmatism, she is using her intellect and her wisdom, and strategy, right? By the time you go to battle, and this is very much part of Sun Tzu's Art of War, the battle's already won by the time you are actually going into fighting because of everything else that leads up to it, right? The strategy and figuring out how it's all going to play out. So by the time you actually step into battle with your weapons and engaging in it, the winner is already determined because it's based on all of this work and strategy that goes into it. So Pallas Athena, even though she is retrograde as well right now and going to pass over Neptune in her transit around the sun, we can really bring this, strategy and this wisdom into this process that is very amorphous and very fluid and is really hard to know where we end and anything else begins. And so we have a strategy here, and in some ways it's almost like the strategy is to be almost like that, to be amorphous, to be fluid, to be under the radar, to hide in some ways. Now, Neptune in its retrograde is certainly making it less easy to hide. The fog is clearing when Neptune is retrograde because you have to see it all within yourself very clearly. And if you're not seeing it clearly, it's as a result of willful ignorance as far as I'm concerned. So Pallas Athena also in its retrograde. So we are strategizing within ourselves. We're looking at our own strategy and being able to add some pragmatism to this substantiation, right? Because if you are not aware of yourself at all, and if you are not aware of yourself within the context of the collective unconscious and what that means, then you're not really, you risk being used, right? That your vital energy substantiating something very unconscious. And so when you're not aware of yourself, when you're not aware of who you are in this space, it's very easy to lose yourself and also to give yourself over to something else. And so now that Pallas Athena is meeting Neptune, she's really bringing this practical strategy and wisdom to this process. And I think we really need a dose of this because, again, there's a lot of people that are still completely asleep to what's going on. There's many people who are becoming aware of all of these dynamics of the dominators and what they're doing, but also, too, not quite aware that they're still on the hamster wheel anyway. It's just like they see everybody else on a hamster wheel, not realizing they're still on their own hamster wheel. So Pallas Athena is really going to give us the ability to have some, like I said, practicality and wisdom, right? And be able to strategize instead of just kind of like, I don't know, just giving ourselves over in this really unconscious way. So that was very beginning of the 27th. So early this morning, late last night. Now as we move forward with our moon transits for today, we see here that the moon is in a trine. Oh, this is so lovely. But it's what it actually references is also very interesting here. So we have a moon in Taurus. Taurus is the material world. It is the natural world. And part of the natural world are natural cycles, right? Of the impermanence of everything material. It all does decay. And all of these cycles are embedded in the symbolic representation of Taurus, right? The natural world has death and rebirth as part of it, right? Decay and then growth. And so this trine today, this beautiful Earth trine between, oops, where did you go? Where did you go? Oh no. Oh no. Did I lose the internet? Or did I just lose this? No, I have the internet still. Well, we'll go to this for now. This one as well. So, and maybe if I get the other one back, we will utilize it. Let's see here. Yeah, Planet Watcher went down. Okay, so here is our moon here. Same thing, we have this trine here to the sun today. And we're starting to become aware, and we're starting to really express ourselves, the sun in Virgo. We're starting to become aware of the natural forces around us, right? We're starting to realize that there is this opening of new levels of consciousness. And part of the way that this has been initiated with other aspects astrologically in the last 2 days is through our imagination. So we are starting to be not only become aware of normally unseen spiritual forces and support and these openings of new levels of consciousness, right? We talked about this yesterday, the revelation of new potential that comes out of the chaos. And so now we're starting to open and be like, oh, I see this whole new level that I can be on. And it comes through the ability to use our imagination. Now, some people have a hard time, how do you go into these shamanic spaces? How do you go into these psychic spaces? Imagination is a very powerful tool in this realm. And it's our imagination that allows for us to not only fantasize and be able to feel the resonance of a situation that hasn't come yet, right? Because we can imagine it, but it also is the realm in which we do this intuitive, psychic, shamanic work. It's through our imagination, through the ability to construct within our own mind's eye this possibility. So we're now starting to express ourselves through this, like really starting to engage our expressive nature, right? The sun, the expression of who we are in this opening of new levels of consciousness. Now the trine to a moon in Taurus today, which is very fascinating. Let's see if we get back to Planet Watcher. Oh my gosh. Because this is a much more ideal chart. I don't know if it's going to work, guys. Okay. Oh, there we go. Here we go. It came back. Or did it? Oh my gosh. Well, we'll go back to this. So this trine here with the sun and the moon, this beautiful earth trine, the moon now, so this is who we are on the outside, right? How we express ourselves outwardly, and this is the moon being how we feel on the inside, is about the impermanence of anything material, ashes to ashes and dust to dust, right? And so we can find some traction here with this trine, the impermanence of all material and social bonds, right? That's something to consider as well. So we feel the impermanence of all of it, right? We're starting to realize on some level, and we do this every month, right? The moon goes through all of the signs every month and crosses every single degree, but it's this particular moment that is making this connection to the sun, where we are now starting to open to new levels of consciousness and finding some really strong support at the same time with how we feel that there is impermanence. So we do have to let go on some level of what was in a material way, in a social way, acknowledging and accepting that as part of a natural cycle and feeling into that. And when we do that, it's very much finding this support with the sun that is now allowing us to look forward, or not even look forward, but imagine something that before hadn't really been there. So we do see that there is, again, we're now moving out of this position where we were existing in two places at once. This was the real challenge of yesterday. And now we're starting to, it's almost like a separation in some ways, but also a realization that in order to be able to imagine these new potentials, right? These unseen natural forces that we may not have seen before, and to express ourselves through them, we do have to engage our feelings about the impermanence of what has been, right? Nothing lasts forever. The only constant in the universe is change. And the impermanence of all of our bonds, material and social, is a very stark reality. So this earth trine between the moon and the sun today is in some ways like a foundation within each of us, that polarity of yin and yang, to be able to start pulling on each other. I know that sounds weird, but it's providing the foundation for this letting go, but also moving forward at the very same time. So you can see how we're now moving forward from this chaos that had us, asking us, inviting us to exist in two places at once. And now we're starting to actually step into each of those places even more so, right? The gap is widening, but at the same time, within us, that gap is actually, it's like as the gap widens, it's like it provides a wider base of support, if that makes sense. So, let's see if Planet Watcher came back. Nope, it did not. Okay, guys, well, that's gonna, it's gonna make things very interesting. So, but that's okay. So now as we move through our transits of today, now we talked about this yesterday, that Mercury was in a quincunx. You can see here the green line. Mercury is an exact quincunx to Jupiter. We talked about this yesterday, where the it's on some mental level, like we kind of want to allow our minds to follow some refinement here, right? To be able to, there's a time when being able to follow and honor like more formal procedures can be very great value for a disordered mind, right? And so maybe if your mind is really struggling right now, if you are struggling in your mind, your communication, the way that you conceptualize the world outside of you, right? Mercury is our nervous system and how it functions. If we're struggling with all of this kind of chaos and this disordered, space in our own mind, one way that we can make sense of it, or certainly assist in this process, is to, follow some formal procedure in our life, whatever it is. And of course, it's going to determine where this is in your chart that will give you the most insight on how to actually bring this forward. So for me, for instance, this position is in my 8th house. I already talked about this yesterday. It's in conjunction with my North Node, actually. So with my lunar North Node, right, of Rahu, of where the trajectory of my soul's evolution. And so finding something in the realm of shared resources and intimacy, and going into the darker spaces, right, the shadow work, all that 8th house type of stuff. Finding a place, some sort of formal procedure, some sort of refined ceremonial type of ritual in some way, something that's like a revered tradition in order to perpetuate that's there to perpetuate a cultural standard. It's there to give you a framework in order to perpetuate something that's part of a much larger lineage, right? And so figuring out what that is can really help give your mind something to latch onto that in a time where it's otherwise very chaotic. Now, the quincunx to Jupiter, Jupiter in Aquarius, Jupiter retrograde in Aquarius, Jupiter that is expanding within us this space that is allowing for the traditional skill and the delicacy of feeling that Aquarius in its mastery really does represent. There's no separation ultimately between us and nature, and that is the mastery of Aquarius, right? Because the power of the collective does really hold all of, not just the human collective, but all of it, right? And returning back to natural skills, pure feeling, and having a space in which to hold that, right? Aquarius is the water bearer. So this quincunx is our moment of alchemy, right? Where we have an opportunity to adjust ourselves because these things don't seem to fit, right? Because Aquarius is fixed air, and Virgo is mutable earth, right? There is something about the malleability of our material reality, of our healing process, of, organizing our space, of organizing our mind, right? Getting very meticulous with Virgo and meticulous about ourselves and organizing ourselves on the path of service and devotion. Whereas Jupiter, it's a very fixed, kind of that laser beam focus. And so we're going to have to find a place here that we can alchemize these two aspects that don't seem to fit together, because Mercury is about getting in, or well, Mercury too, but Virgo is about getting into the underworld of ourselves and really moving things around and doing the healing process and, the path of discipleship and purification. And Jupiter in Aquarius, of course, is just like, I'm going to give you all of the management and resources that you need in order to be able to hold this purity and delicacy of feeling, right? And Jupiter is just expansive. There is nothing about details at all with Jupiter. It is just big picture all the time. So you can see right there that we're going to have to find a way to take details and refinement and formal procedure when it comes to our material reality and how to organize it with Jupiter. That's like just big picture. I am management, right? I'm just giving you the space. I'm giving you the space within you to find this, and that's going to be difficult, I think. But what a great opportunity to find the specific procedures in our own mind and our communication, while at the same time being very realistic about the expansion within us of just the space, right? It's really hard to organize yourself as a space when it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Which is what Jupiter does. So we're going to have to allow for the space to widen within us and allow it to hold all of this pure feeling, while at the same time figuring out how to organize that space as it's simultaneously like expanding. That seems really difficult and can be very overwhelming. And so good luck on that. And I mean, that's for all of us, not just anybody listening, but for myself too. Good luck, because that's going to be, but that's, again, that's the challenge of these quincunxes, right? These are these moments where these things don't fit together, and we have the opportunity to square the circle, right? That is about the alchemy, right? And Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, the 9th house. That is about understanding and alchemy. So Jupiter can really, and Mercury in Virgo is the alchemist. So when you start thinking about it that way, you realize that it's not as difficult as it seems. It's just a matter of adjusting ourselves so that they do complement each other in some way, or certainly allow us to create something new, a new opportunity for ourselves. So a lot, and I know that was a lot of explanation, but these are big transits. So and now the things that I want to bring up that are really strong today are Black Moon Lilith is in an interesting position. So we see that she is also going to be meeting the North Node very soon. But as of today, she is in a direct trine. Look at that, with Saturn. Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. So and at the same time, the moon is going to be in a square to her as it moves forward, right? As it moves forward in its transit in Taurus. So Black Moon Lilith is, this is really going to test our ability to really be able to create inner happiness in a very dark moment. Oh boy. And as I said, it's getting more chaotic, it's getting darker, it's getting uglier. And the moon in Taurus, the moon, it wants to be safe, it wants to be comfortable, it wants to be secure in Taurus, right? We just kind of want to wrap ourselves up in our home and in the place that we feel comfortable and secure, and embed ourselves in it. And so our ability to create happiness in a dark time, in a dark time, by acknowledging the cycles and faith in cyclic renewal, is a big part of the Taurus archetype, is acknowledging that it does all come back around, because that is the nature of the physical world, the material reality, is that it all comes in cycles. And so it's going to, the moon at this point will square Saturn retrograde in this degree, is going to square it, and you can see it right here in this square, which is, Saturn in this position now is really making it unavoidable, but also giving us a lot of inner backbone, right? Some inner scaffolding to take the vision and act it out, right? It's one thing to be the seer, right? It's one thing to connect to the psychic and intuitive structure and framework. It's another thing to put it into action. And so Saturn in this position has been giving us our own backbone in order to step forward and act out the vision, right? It's, like I said, it's one thing to be able to plug into it and see it. it's another thing to step out of it and actually act it out. And this is a really good position for Saturn to be in right now. And many people are realizing their own power and their own inner authority and their own backbone, right? And they are starting to step out. And you can see this in many ways right now, where people are really challenging what is perceived as authority. They're challenging what they are seeing as being forced upon them in some ways. And so, and acting out their conception of what actually is a healthy collective and doing something about it, right? And so when this comes in direct, I mean, this will be something that'll be much more accessible and visible outside of us. Right now, it's about giving us this inner backbone. But the moon in Taurus in a square here, right? Those cross purposes, of course, is we just kind of want to just like, you know, decorate the Christmas tree and kind of, hunker down inside and wait, right? And remember, the moon is a transient moment, right? It's just a moment of feeling. And so lean into that. Lean into the discomfort of that, because it's not that either of them is wrong. It's just that when they meet each other, they are going to cause friction. And it's learned so much from these squares about ourselves and about how to manage that friction and that discomfort. Now, along with that is Black Moon Lilith, is going to be in a trine to Saturn, in an air trine. So Black Moon Lilith is a position, right? It's a space that is the average distance between the Earth and the moon at its furthest away in its orbit around the Earth. And I believe that's I always get it confused, apogee or perigee, always. I never remember. I need to come up with a mnemonic device to figure it out. But the part of the orbit of the moon around the Earth, the furthest away, the space in between that and the Earth is called Black Moon Lilith, right? And we know the myth of Lilith, right? She is the pissed off activist. She is the dark feminine, the deep part of ourselves that demands to be empowered and to stand up for herself. And when we don't acknowledge this part of ourselves, it tends to lead us to act out in ways that are very destructive and not very, Lilith was not interested in compromise or consensus. She just wanted out. And even though she, in terms of the mythological structure, and even though that she was invited back, she still was just like, nah, I'm not into it. So we have to be aware of what that represents in both sides of it. It gives us, it really, really allows each of us to tap into that place within ourselves, but it also, if we are unconscious of it and we are letting that run rampant without any kind of balance, then we have the tendency to act out as well. So, but this trine, oh boy, this trine to Saturn, this is where these two things are going to support each other. Saturn's giving us the backbone, right, to step out into that, is giving us to step out from the seer into the vision. Now, where's Black Moon Lilith at 8 to 9 degrees Gemini? A quiver filled with arrows, right? If we can harness that Lilith energy, that pissed off activist part of ourselves, right, that demands equality, that demands to be heard, that demands to be sovereign, right? That part of ourselves that is the dark feminine. It's not just the feminine in each of us, which is the moon, something even darker and deeper than that. If we can take that and utilize our ability to get right to the bullseye, right, within ourselves, if we can, bypass our ego, not even bypass it, if we can just shoot through the obstacle with that quiver filled with arrows, oh wow, that is going to give us exactly what we need in order to step out of what we see and act on it. And these two aspects are supporting each other immensely today. This is incredibly powerful. And we need this. We need this right now in order to stand up for ourselves in whatever way we need to do. But we have to be able to keep our ego in check. And in fact, we have to be able to use our mental capacity, which is Gemini, and get right to the bullseye, right? We can't allow, and it is aggressive, right? It's an arrow. You're shooting it at a target. It pierces through the target. So there is this sense of penetration and aggressiveness. But if we can focus that within ourselves, right? Because Lilith is retrograde, and so is Saturn. I mean, this is very powerful, giving us this ability to really stand up for ourselves and to be very conscious and aware of finding that midpoint between the duality of Gemini, right? Getting right to the bullseye. Now, the moon, like I said, square to Saturn at this point. It is also in trine. Oh no. Is not in trine. I don't know why I said that. It would be in a semi-sextile, right? It would be because this Taurus and Gemini. So they are in this harmonious connection to each other, but it's very subtle, right? A semi-sextile is a 30-degree angle. They're right next to each other in the sign. And so they can support each other, and there is some measure of harmony here, but it's very subtle. It's something that we're going to have to like really feel into. And when you're talking about the moon and Black Moon Lilith, man, that is a lot of deep, dark, feminine energy. And so there is something to be said about our ability to create happiness in the darkness, right? Because if we can at least find our footing in the darkness, in the dark feminine, that will allow us the ability to really penetrate and get to the center of that bullseye within us, right? Our own ego, and realize that we're not just working for ourselves, but we're actually working for something much more than ourselves, right? For the actual Earth herself, the planet, you know, something that's deeper than just our own feelings, okay? Now, as the moon passes this point, let's see if Planet Watcher is back. Nope, it is not back. So the moon passes this point. Let's go here. I know this is gonna screw up what I'm doing, but oh well. It's going to meet Juno in a quincunx, asteroid Juno, right? Who is at the point of Antares, of course, and is the heart of a scorpion. You know, we've talked about that. Oh, you can see right here how this T-square is coming. Oh boy. Okay. So moon, quincunx, Juno. Now, the heart of the scorpion. This is important too, because the heart of the scorpion, this is the betrayal that we've been talking about with Juno, right? The balance of the scales, our commitments, our contractual obligations, and the betrayal that comes along when we enter into these and somebody doesn't, you know, fulfill their end of the bargain or does something in particular to break our trust, right? The heart of the scorpion, right? You're getting the sting of the power dynamics in all shared relationships and what that really means. The quincunx here with the moon in Taurus is that we're going to feel this compassionate linking with all of us, right? By, you know, letting go of all of the different labels that we have and realizing that we're all linked together as human. And so you're going to see that quincunx come right out today, right? Because those things are also not going to fit together. And we're going to have to find a way to alchemize that situation. So that's going to be powerful too, because it's really easy to get caught up in the betrayal aspect and start dehumanizing other people just because you are recognizing how their actions have maybe betrayed your trust. And at the same time, we have to acknowledge that we're all human. And if we can find that way to link and feel into that, I think that but we don't want to let go of the betrayal of our trust. I'm not saying that we should just forget about that. That's not what I'm saying at all. And that's not what even this quincunx is about. It's really about finding a way to alchemize that situation. How do we feel into the compassionate linking of all human beings that we know is true, but at the same time, how do we honor a very real and very painful sting of betrayal and betrayal of a trust in relationships, and that can be in the justice system, that can be in contractual marriage, like a marriage or any kind of contractual or committed type of relationship. When there's betrayal and the sting is so painful, it's going to be really important that we don't lose our humanity in this moment. So that's the moon quincunx Juno, and that really does take us to the end of today. So when we look at tomorrow, for instance, boom, boom, boom. Let's go back to the beginning of the day here. We'll go back a couple 12 hours so that we see the beginning. So you can see that the T-square with the sun and the moon's nodes is very obvious, and will be exact on Sunday the 29th. Let's see here. Oh, we're back. Yay. All right, friends, we can use this one now because it's so much easier to use this one. So now we're looking at the 28th, and okay, let me see. I want to make sure to, yes, okay. Sound is in mono, only one speaker. Hold on one second. Now let me know how this, let me know, because I think I just fixed it. But oh, you know what? The thing is that I only, I wonder, let me know if this fixes it or not, because I only have one input from this microphone into the box. So I'm wondering if this fixes it. So let's see. So this is all new to me. So if that doesn't fix it, then I will take I'll just take the microphone off for now and go back to the computer's microphone. That way it's not coming through just one speaker, because that's really disorienting. I would find that disorienting. Okay, so here we go, the 28th. And I'm just trying to like blow through this as concisely and quickly as possible, because there's just so much here. Okay, guys, 28th. This is where the Draco activations start, okay? This is where the sun is in a conjunction with Alpha Draconis. This is where the Draco Starseed activations start. And this is really important because it also is going to be in conjunction with Alpha Draconis at the third quarter square of the moon, in conjunction with a Gemini moon, right? In conjunction with the Hyades starseed. So you can see now how the intense feeling moving through us and allowing this expression to move through us is going to find a lot of friction with this Draco energy, which is really about the reptilian nature of being silent and still and striking at the right time. That's something to consider. So let's go through it. The Black Moon Lilith now is also going to be in conjunction with Rahu, by the way, as we see here. So Lilith is going to meet the North Node. And what is this degree? Aroused strikers surround a factory. This is the revolt against privileges. That is an inevitability with the duality of consciousness. When one side is benefiting and privileging, the other side will have to find a way to balance. And sometimes that is a very direct, authentic, and strong expression. And in fact, this is, and Ceres, right? Asteroid Ceres as well is also right here, and she is the goddess of grain. She is Gaia. So we're also going to see, and this is very interesting when we have all of this solar weather about to hit the planet with a very weak electromagnetic field. There is going to be an eruption. And Black Moon Lilith here, that is part of this whole process, and Rahu, our soul's trajectory, it's really going to pull us in this direction of not only authentic expression and the revolt against this imbalance, of course, in the earth herself, but also too when it comes to our soul's trajectory. And remember, Rahu is the head of the dragon, of the Draco constellation. So and Draco, the star, Alpha Draconis, and Thuban is the tail. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The moon is going to conjunct Uranus here. You can see it right here. And we'll move over to this as well, and we'll go back a little bit here. so you can see, because not only is the moon going to conjunct Uranus, so be ready for another braving of the storm, except this time, now that Uranus is retrograde, it's going to be the storm within us. Yeah, I think, Paige, I think it's just because I don't have 2 inputs. So I'll work on this. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to, there we go. I'm just going to go back to the computers. I'm going to go back to the computer. Yes, here we go. I'll figure this out. This is my weekend work. So thank you for your feedback. I really appreciate that. That really helps me a lot. Okay, so Uranus is now retrograde. The moon is going to meet this retrograde Uranus. It's still 14 to 15 degrees. We are braving the storm, right? We're putting our head down. We're flipping our collar, and our character is really being tested. And this is going to come right to our doorstep emotionally, right? With the moon here. Now, along with that, as you see, there's going to be a quincunx with Venus in Libra, not only with the moon, but also directly with Uranus. Okay, that quincunx again, right? This is that opportunity to adjust ourselves. And where is Venus? So we know where Uranus and the moon are at this point, but where's Venus? Well, Venus is at this part of Libra now where we're coming to the very end of the first half of Libra, right? The transfiguration stage. And this particular degree of 14 to 15 degrees of Libra is symbolized by the labyrinth, the circular path, right? And it's the idea that we're coming to terms with the inevitability of establishing steady rhythms of social activity, right? So it can go either way here. You can either feel totally bored because it's the same routine over and over, or you find some transpersonal peace knowing that these social activities come in cycles. And it's really when you start looking at the process of balancing the scales, it starts to look like a wheel turning. And remember, the hub of the wheel stays stationary while the wheel is turning. And this is really what this represents. So Venus is about our relationships, our material reality, our value, the goddess of love and beauty and harmony, all of these things. And in Libra, she is Lady Justice. She is sensitive to the balancing of the scales. And we start to realize in the inevitability of this circular turning of the wheel, right? That is part of this transfiguration process. Now, the quincunx here is the fact that we're really going to have to bear down and face some really difficult, very material challenges, as we have been with Uranus already. And now that the moon is going to meet this retrograde Uranus, it's going, like I said, it's going to be brought right to our emotional doorstep. We're going to feel it very intimately. And the quincunx here, again, is how do we adjust ourselves within this context, right? Where we start to realize that in our relationships, in the material world that Venus represents, it's always going to be this turning of the wheel. It's like, it's like turning of the wheel that, any kind of wheel you want to think of. And that hub is at the center. And we need to find that center in order to stay, in order to bear down and actually face the reality that is going to be brought right to us in this quincunx. Wow. That is really strong. So let's see here. So we are moving forward. Let's see, is the sound still good? That's what I want to know, because I believe it is. I do believe that we're still good to go. All right, so what else is happening tomorrow? So you can see now how all of this is starting to build and build and build, and we're getting all of these opportunities to really, make the best of it, and also the challenges that are going to be placed right in front of us. The moon is going to trine Mars during this time as well. As you see, Mars in Virgo, 18 to 19 degrees Virgo. This is when we start to realize in Virgo that we have to work together, that each person has to learn how to work as part of a team. But we are training ourselves to work as part of a team, right? We each have to do the training on our own end in order to get here. And so the moon in this trine to Mars in in Mars in Virgo, is another Earth trine. There's a lot of this Earth energy, these Earth trines that are part of this weekend's astrology, especially. And within us, we're going to start the rise of something new, something completely new coming out of the formlessness of the ocean, right? A new continent rising out of the ocean. And with Mars, in a very strong connection to Mars, which is about it's kind of interesting that the connection here with all of these, the connection with these symbols, because Mars in Virgo at this degree is about like a swimming race, right? It's like each person has to be personally up to speed with their own training, so the whole swim team is able to really win. And it's also too emulating rather than competing with people, right? There are people that have mastered these skill sets in Virgo that we can emulate, and when we do that, we actually are taking all of us are going together, right? And some of us need to train more. Some of us have trained already, and we can show how we've gotten there, and we can be an example for other people to emulate. And so Mars has got courage and ambition and drive and is fearless, right? Is really just going to go for it and really look towards those who have already done this work and be like, that's what I want to be like. And this is going to get us all there. So this trine to the moon in Taurus at the same time as we feel something new rising out of the formlessness is very auspicious, right? We're going to start seeing our own potential come out of the formlessness of the collective unconscious and really being supported by this ambitious and courageous move forward to win this race, not for our own ego, but for all of us. This is, you can just already feel like the rising out of, and like this really, it's just, it just seems like this is going to be a moment where we see what we're really capable of doing and having some evidence of it within ourselves, right? In an emotional way, something rising out of the formlessness of our own emotional landscape to be seen and give us something to look towards, right? And Mars is just like, yes, let's go for it. I have all of the courage and ambition to actually win this race because it takes all of us with, it benefits all of us, right? And so there's this warrior energy that's going along with it too that I think is really helpful. And then, let's see here. And at the same time is in a quincunx to asteroid Vesta that's just like, yeah, that's great, but we have to... it's like you want to, Vesta at this position is wanting to, she is representing that fire within us. And that fire within us really wants to protest this social disharmony, right? It's kind of like Robin Hood, or, you know what I mean? That's just like stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, right? Like we may be pushing against like the normal social boundaries, but it's because we see something that doesn't belong anymore. And it's very strong, right? This is the spark within us that really takes us, that sustains us, sustains the community. So the quincunx here, though, is that we have to adjust ourselves because it's really about each of us stepping into our own mastery as opposed to trying to balance out a larger social disharmony. Not to say that we shouldn't do that, but again, there is that quincunx again. And Venus is getting very close to Vesta. In just a matter of days, it's going to meet Vesta. And so there will be a very relatable moment here with that spark within us. But in the meantime, we want to emulate where we're, the best and the masters of where we want to go because it helps all of us. And we see this potential rising within us, but we can't, what it's going to feel like it doesn't fit is that we have this spark and this flame and fire within us to balance the scales of social disharmony. And we're going to have to figure out how we can still work on ourselves to master ourselves, to allow this new potential to rise within ourselves at the same time that we are acknowledging that we have to start pushing back, right? We have to start doing what we need to do socially in order to balance things out. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic, actually. I think we've been like kind of working with this the whole time. And then Black Moon Lilith, like I said, is a conjunction with the North Node. And then here we go. The moon starts to sextile Neptune and Pallas Athena in Pisces. And this is where we start to recognize our own personal worth and how we can apply that to the substantiation of our ideal. When we acknowledge that we are worthy, we are able to, and that is certified socially in some way, like in some way. I'm not inside, that's going to be different for each person. But when we embody that within ourselves, we can apply this and invest this into the substantiation of this conscious ideal. But it's only going to come when we acknowledge our own personal worth that has been growing over time, right? It's like minerals and crystals that have been created for, under all this pressure and natural cycles. And then you bring them to the jewelry shop and they're turned into this beautiful piece of jewelry that is very expensive, right? Like if you even want to take it like for a diamond, for instance, even though that's very loaded, but just take that for a very basic symbol here. When we are able to, we're acknowledging socially the value of this thing that developed naturally. So we feel that within ourselves, and we can apply this to Neptune in Pisces at that time, and also Pallas Athena. So by the end of Saturday, there will be kind of this opportunity within each of us to realize our own personal worth. And when we are in that place, we are able to really actually substantiate something incredible, right? Something on a transcendent level, something that has to do with the collective, something that has to do with cosmic consciousness and unconditional love and forgiveness, right? These beautiful ideas, the Pisces is the realm of these areas here, this imagination and like I said, compassion and forgiveness. And so, but we have to come to a place where we recognize within ourselves our own worth. And when we do that, then we can apply that. We can invest that to where Neptune is and where Pallas Athena is too, right? The strategy that goes along with it. But it will require that we recognize this within ourselves. We're going to have to feel into it in order to invest that into where Neptune is. And then we move on to Sunday, the 29th, and we're getting so close to our third quarter square. So our moon is still in Taurus, is going to, as you see here, is going to come into another Earth trine, this time with Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. Keep in mind now that the moon is in conjunction with Algol, right? The Gorgon, Medusa. What is that part of ourselves that we have to let go of, that we have to release? The expression of all of the toxicity and trauma that comes up to the surface and turns us into a monster, right? Letting go of that for the greater good, releasing that to the collective in some way within us, right? And as a very personal experience, again, is going to find a lot of traction and support to where Pluto is, which is tearing away within us every cultural tradition that we have relied upon in our institution of reality. So again, these things will support each other. And in fact, when we let go of that part of ourselves, it like paves the way in some ways for the transformation potential that Pluto really represents. So we're going to have to release something about ourselves, and we're kind of getting primed all the way through this weekend in order to do that. And then, oh wow, the moon then comes into a square with, and is still in conjunction with Algol, by the way, is then going to come into a square with Jupiter retrograde. We already talked about where Jupiter is in its retrograde and, expanding and managing this space that keeps growing within us that holds our pure feeling and our connection to the natural world. And again, the square, these are fixed squares because we're talking about Taurus. Again, so it may have been in a trine to where Pluto is, but this fixed square is, we don't want to necessarily let go of this. And, Jupiter is just expanding this space within us, and we just want to feel it, right? We just want to feel into it and connect into pure feeling and the delicacy of it. And this is going to be really uncomfortable when we are being challenged in some ways to let go of some aspect of ourselves that really is very toxic and is the result of previous trauma. Because this is how we end up reinforcing a lot of the same things onto other people. And so we're going to have to let go of it. But the square with Jupiter, right, is expanding this space that allows the light in and feeling it. Oh, that's going to feel very strange, I think. I have a feeling that is going to feel very strange and very uncomfortable. And just remember that Jupiter is an advocate, and Jupiter is benefic, and Jupiter is fortunate. And so in this expansion within us, it is all big picture. So just remember that as you lean into how uncomfortable this likely will be. We're looking on Sunday here, first thing in the morning. And having to let go of those aspects. It's a lot safer to hold on to that identity. This is a very Chiron type of thing, actually. So it's a good thing we had that opposition with Venus yesterday to really kind of begin this process of letting go of these wounds and this identity. And then the moon will also come into another Earth trine. Here we go, another Earth trine. The moon's making all kinds of Earth trines, right? This weekend, and it's going to be in the last degrees of Virgo and Taurus, right? So this is some mastery level action here because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, the very last degree. This is just mastery level, and the moon exalted in Taurus in the last degree. We are going to strut our stuff in a way that allows us to fully concentrate on our ideal. And our intention, right? Totally intent. Our minds get really focused, totally intent upon completing a very immediate task. And and being deaf to anything else, right? Total concentration that is required to reach any spiritual goal. So Mercury really doesn't like to focus, but this is the one time where Mercury is able to push everything out, push it all aside, and the outer doors of perception need to be closed off. And the moon in the last degree of Taurus is giving us this really confident, we have everything we need. We've had it the whole time. We've brought it with us. Taurus is the natural world. We embody this feeling that we have everything that we need, and we apply that, and we find balance and support, right? That trine with Virgo, that is about, like I said, the outer doors of perception are closed off, and we are totally intent upon reaching that spiritual goal, and which is about purification and devotion and service, right? That is what Virgo ultimately is all about. Now, the sun at this point is in a conjunction with Thuban or Alpha Draconis. So this is where the Draco activation is coming online, is at this point. And this trine between Mercury and the moon at this moment is letting us know that we have to focus and to trust what we have within us in order to do this, because the Draco activation will be very, we'll have to be very mindful of it, because we have to know exactly what our spiritual goal is, because otherwise it's very easy to get pulled into utilizing that for personal gain, for overpowering other people, for exploiting other people. These are all the dark sides of the Draco aspect. And the Draco starseeds in particular, as I explain to my clients, the Draco starseeds are here to hold the light of that reptilian nature, right? There's something very deep within us in the reptilian brain, the limbic system, that allows us to survive and to be instinctual. And that's a really powerful medicine. The serpent medicine, the Kundalini, is so powerful, but we have got to make sure that we are utilizing it in the most purified way. And this trine between the moon and Mercury is going to set the tone for that, as then the sun comes into a conjunction with Alpha Draconis. So let's see, let's make sure we had the, and yes, because then the sun, here we are, the sun is going to square the nodal axis. And here is our T-square right here. And so there's a natural opposition. We also have Black Moon Lilith that is coming into conjunction with Rahu. Remember what 7 degrees of Gemini is, right? This is the trust and fundamental cooperation with nature and life, right? It is the bucket and the well, right? That we trust that what we need will be provided by nature, but we actually have to put some effort into it, right? Now, the opposition with K2 or the South Node is mitigated, and it's mitigated, and the tension is released and concentrated over here, which is where the sun is, which is Alpha Draconis, or fixed star Thuban, right? And so what is this degree here? Well, what we're looking at here is, we have to go to the next day. Hold on. So we can see where we're at. There we go. Because the moon is going to eventually move into Gemini during this time. So again, Black Moon Lilith is here. It's retrograde, that deep, dark, feminine part of ourselves that wants to be heard, that demands to be acknowledged for a sovereign entity, meeting the North Node, which is pulling us, the head of the dragon, pulling us in our souls, to our soul's destiny for evolution. And the sun in this T-square is what's releasing the tension between the nodal axis of the moon. And it's, like I said, it's in conjunction with fixed star Thuban or Alpha Draconis. And this is about, specifically, like I went back and explained already, it's about learning how to use even the emptiness of waiting as a potential energy, right? If you've ever seen a reptile, right, they are able to be completely still until the moment, or they're completely still as an instinctual way to survive, right? To not be seen by any predators. But they also they have an instinct to stay completely still and blended into the environment until it's time for them to prey, right? To prey upon whatever it is that they are preying upon, right? And this is very basic. It's important to realize that we have in this moment here, we need to be able to harness the potential energy of the serpent medicine, of the Kundalini, and not release it because Black Moon Lilith is demanding to be heard and demanding to be seen and demanding, an equal acknowledgement. And those things, there's nothing wrong with those things, but when it's retrograde and when we don't acknowledge it, this is why the moon crossing Algol is going to be so important, because we have to release the trauma and the toxicity that came along with it in order to really harness this. And if we can do this, and Draco Starseeds, this is where you step up. This is where you step up, because you are the ones that are here to hold the light, the potential, and the power of this in a really potent way. And so it's this ability to hold fast, right? This ability to wait for the right moment to strike. Whatever that means, right? Wait for the right moment to release the Kundalini. You want to be ready for it. You want to have the vessel be prepared for it. And this is how this T-square is really going to benefit us the most, right? And of course, the squares are uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. But what it's going to give us is a way to really harness the potential energy in this opposition. And it's the sun. So this is how we express ourselves. This is going to be really, really powerful, especially because right after this is when we come into our third quarter square. So, I think I covered Sunday. So let's look at the rest of the week, just real briefly. And you can look at the study guide. We will be together, of course. Okay, thanks, Paige. I just popped over to the chat and the sound is good, so I really appreciate that. Okay. So here we are. We're gonna move forward through the week so that we can kind of see what we're up against as the moon is going through her waning phase. It's going to be more difficult for us to be aware of what normally is kind of hidden and suppressed and in our subconscious, right? As the moon gets darker and darker. And it's why it's so important to be aware of this, because then we can utilize this consciously as opposed to getting really caught up. And the moon's going to be in Gemini, as you see here, in a square to the sun, in conjunction with Alpha Draconis. So there is, and in conjunction with Rahu as well. So let me see here. The big ones that we're going to look at, like I said, we're going to, this is the 30th, so the third quarter square. Also, to look in that, Mercury is going to move into Libra, right? Moving out of its home territory into another air sign, but is not as powerful because it's about applying our knowledge to find balance. And Mercury just wants to live in the realm of the ideas and the thoughts and the logos and analyze them, of course, but applying them to perfect form is not exactly what Mercury wants to be doing, but we'll do it anyway, because at least it's an air sign. And so there's some familiarity there. So we know that Mercury is now moving into Libra. We know that the moon is going to meet Rahu. And so again, this fundamental cooperation and trust in the natural world that is going to be brought right to our awareness, the moon meeting her own north node at that point. And so we're going to feel that draw and that drive and that pull, which I think is really important. And at the same time is going to be in a square to the sun in that third quarter sun, our crisis in consciousness. So again, do we participate in this process where we trust but also harness what is provided to us in this cooperation? And where are the cross purposes with the sun coming into because at that point you've moved into the next degree of 7 to 8 degrees. So what is that? That is the aroused strikers surrounding a factory. So we're going to be really feeling that revolt. We want the balance of power here, but at the same time, 7 to 8 degrees of Virgo is oh man, I think I would remember since I just did it. Hold on one second, guys. One day I'll have all of these things remembered. I think it'll take a couple more years to get to that point. 7 to 8. Yes, a 5-year-old child takes a first dancing lesson. It's learning to use one's capacity for emotional self-expression according to cultural standards. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that we are starting to learn how to utilize our energy and being initiated into some sort of lineage or some sort of standard or practice, but and this is the release of the Kundalini, right? This is the release of it. And so it's still mitigated and controlled and supported by a framework, a guru, for instance, right? That's one way to think about it. Some sort of cultural standard, some sort of lineage, some sort of framework. The root system, right, is what is able to hold and transfer the energy that comes about from all these processes, these chemical processes and these enzymes in the soil, right? This is what's happening with Virgo. It is the root system actually utilizing its strength and its ability to harness what it needs from the environment. So we're going to feel this arousal, right? We're going to want to explode and revolt against this disharmony and this imbalance of privilege, right? And again, this is where the Hyades starseeds, let it move through you, right? Don't get too attached to it, because we have to also make sure that the expression is coming through something that can hold it. You know what I mean? And what happens when the Kundalini awakening happens and you don't have a guru, you don't have a guide, you don't have a container to hold it? Well, it is used inappropriately. It can lead to a psychotic break, all kinds of different things. And so this third quarter square, where is our consciousness really going to be? Well, we want to lean into this and feel the friction so that we can learn and grow from it. We don't want to box ourselves in entirely because we're not necessarily children, but at the same time, we do not want to allow that arousal to take us over. Oh, wow. And at the same time that Mercury is coming into Libra, right? That is like, okay, my mental processes are focused on the perfect form and balance, right? And so we may have this, there may be, a tendency here to kind of hold ourselves back. There may be a tendency to hold our communication back in order to have it be perfectly balanced and not offend anybody or anything to that effect. But we also don't want to not have this expression come through us. So we have to give ourselves the space to express and to let it move through us, but also to not let it take us over. And we certainly don't want to get caught totally in the perfect form of balance and justice in our communication and not allow for this very authentic expression to move through us. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So that's our third quarter square on Monday. So that officially starts the fourth quarter. And as we go through this, we're going to see that the sun now is in a quincunx with Saturn, right? There's another adjustment with our expression of self versus the backbone in terms of our ability to act out the vision of what we have for the collective. And we, as we move through the week, we're going to officially get to September, and then we're going to see here the moon is now in Cancer, right? And Mars is going to be in a direct opposition to Neptune. This is where we put on the armor of God, honestly. I mean, I know that that's a really played out phrase, but this is it right here. Mars stepping into that power, putting on the armor, putting on the royal coat of arms, in the face of the dissolution of our entire being into something that is reconstituting with Neptune, right? So we want to be able to give ourselves over. We want to be able to substantiate a conscious ideal for the collective, but we don't want to lose ourselves. And when that is dissolving everybody's boundaries away, at least this part of ourselves, this warrior part of ourselves, has the armor on. And the breastplate, right? That's filled with gems and crystals. That denotes the nobility and the royalty. So this is going to be really important as we move through this week. And then we see that on the 3rd, we have Mercury in a trine to Rahu as well, an air trine to Rahu, and Venus is going to be in a quincunx also with Neptune. And so this sense of justice and fairness in our relationships and our resources with Venus, really using her sensitivity to feel what is balanced, again, is going to need a point of adjustment with Neptune that's like, there's nothing to balance because there's no material reality. It's all consciousness that will then manifest into something eventually. So again, we're going to have to adjust ourselves in this moment. The trine here with Mercury and Rahu, this air trine, again, is really going to give us a way here to balance out this expression of self and this ambition specifically with this sense of finding a central point of balance in that scale, right? Which is, something we can all commune around. So our own minds and the way we conceptualize ideas and thoughts and the way we communicate is, finding some central point that it can rally around. And that will allow us to really engage our ambition when it comes to our soul, right? We're going to really start wanting to move in this direction. And so it'll be important that our minds are at least have a central point of balance to rally around in this moment as well. The 4th is Saturday, right? We're getting into the weekend again. Mercury is then going to trine Saturn as well. And so this is the degree that Saturn is going to station retrograde or direct. This degree, 7 to 8 degrees. So this is important because this degree is about being born out of the cosmic egg, right? It's about a new mutation entirely being born out of an egg. And so it's like providing the shell of the egg in some ways within us to eventually bust out of when it goes, you know what I mean? When Saturn stations direct is going to be the egg cracking, right? And so the retrograde is now the shell is being created around this new human, whatever this is within us, right? This is society. And again, with Mercury here in Libra, the scales of balance and justice and fairness. Again, this is about finding the center point of this, which is even in the most empty hours, there's something that's that spark within us, right? The spark that never goes out. And so we have to be able to conceptualize of that. And when we can do that, again, it'll really support, it's like that flame in the middle is what the shell is starting to develop around. This is something to keep in mind as we get closer to the new moon, right? And speaking of which, right? So the 5th is the end of this lunar quarter, and Venus is going to square Pluto, right? Venus in late Libra. This is an Arcturian activation, right? It's going to square it, and 25 degrees of Libra in conjunction with Arcturus, right, is the ability to discover, the hidden meaning in every experience, the cosmic meaning, the transcendent meaning, right, the ability to see through it all in our very palpable material reality and in the justice. The square here is going to come with Capricorn, which is, all of the traditions that we've built up in order to survive and to be part of our reality, right? All the cultural traditions that we have been utilizing are getting torn away and disintegrated within us. And that square is really going to challenge our ability to see through it all while experiencing it very directly. Wow. I can't even believe what's going to be happening this week. You can just feel it's already ramping up. You can feel it right now. And it's just going to get more intense and more intense and more intense until we get to this new moon on the 6th, right? The new moon in Virgo. It's going to meet, and that's going to be a Syrian starseed activation. So there's a lot of starseed activations right now between now and the new moon. We got Draco, and we got Arcturus, and then with the new moon on the 6th, it's going to be Syrian. And it's going to show us that if we're able to manage ourselves through the course of this, especially this next week, we can really set some intentions to be given, to be gifted, to be bestowed upon us something that shows that we are doing exactly what we came here to do, right? And as starseed and lightworker, truth teller, and just somebody who wants humanity to evolve for the better, right? That's going to be important to set the intention at this new moon to allow for that bestowment to happen, right? To be shown to us. And so we'll go over all of that when the time comes next week. We'll look at the whole lunar month. And this is a great time to actually let you know about the flash sale for the lunar transits. They're $44 right now. And we go over how the lunar cycle is going to impact you based on your natal chart. So you can book that through my website, catalystenergies.net. It's in the description box below. And I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that's plenty of information, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. You can find me on social media through Telegram and Facebook. You can find me on YouTube, hopefully BitChute and Odysee now. And soon I'll be streaming on Twitch, so that'll be an option as well. So let me know if you need anything. Please take very good care of yourself. This is an incredibly potent time right now. It's important that we have our practices and whatever it is, our practices on lockdown, and this is the time to use them, okay? Because we're really going to be put to the test over the next week, and really the next couple of months. But this next week is really going to show us what it means for each sovereign individual to come together into a harmonious, beautiful song together, right? And that's been a big theme, hasn't it? The song and the vibration and the expression through vibration. So despite what comes through, it's important that we are the hub of that wheel, and we are not being thrown around, or we are not identifying with the outside of the wheel, but just following it and being the center, being the hub. So I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend, and we will connect on Monday. Bye.